Welcome back to Library Choice YouTube channel. Today we'll be learning how to make this beautiful keyhole bustier blouse. Okay, it's very simple to make and it's an overlap keyhole. If this is what you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Welcome back to Library Choice YouTube channel. Today we'll be learning how to make an overlap keyhole bustier blouse. Okay, it's going to have a keyhole at the chest area, and then it's going to be overlapping on the main bustier blouse that we are making. So to do this, I already made my markings. For my off shoulder, I went off by 6 inches. That's why I'm starting my measurement from 6 inches, and then the 9 inches is for the armhole measurement, the 10.5 is the bust point, 14 inches for the under bust, and the total length I'm working with is 18 inches. Okay, so after doing this, now the next thing I'm going to do now is to take my bust span measurement, which is also known as the nipple to measurement, which in this case is 8 inches for me. Divided by 2 is going to give me 4 inches, and then I'm going to mark that round. So once I mark that, I take my ruler and make that into a straight line. And then after making it into a straight line, I'm going to be taking my dart on my under bust. So for this tutorial, I'll be taking 2 inches dart on the under bust and also 2 inches dart on the upper part of this. So I will be making like a princess seam dart line. So for the 2 inches, because I want my cup to be pronounced, I'll take ½ inch on this side, on the center front side, and then I'll take the remaining 1.5 inches on the side front side of my pattern. I'll repeat the same thing on the waist area, just so that I can connect it easily. Then I'll make this into a straight line. So now, using my curved ruler, I'm going to connect this to the bust point. Okay, so it is connected, and if you notice, I didn't connect it to exactly the bust point here because I don't want it to be pointy. So that is why I'm leaving like a 3/4 of an inch. So on the upper part here, like I said, I want it to be the cup to be a bit pronounced. So my 2 inches, I'm just going to take it directly on this side of the pattern, and then using my curved ruler again, I'm going to connect it to the bust point. Okay. So I'm trying as much as possible to make sure that it is not too sharp, because I don't want it to be pointing. Okay, so you can see what I have here now. So after that, I'm going to take my side measurement, my circumference measurement. The bust measurement I'm working with is 36 inches. Divided by 2 is going to give me 9 inches, and I already have 4 inches here. So I'll turn my taper and continue my measurement from 4 inches, and then I have my 9 inches here. So I'm adding 1.5 inch seam allowance to this, or even 2 inches, because I'll be joining this together. Okay, for my waist, I'm working with a waist of 30 inches. Divided by 4 is going to give me 7.5 inches. I have around 3.5 here. Then I'll move my tape rule, and then I'll connect it, and then add my 2 inches seam allowance also. And then using my curved ruler, I'm going to connect this together. I'm sure we are familiar with the process of making a bustier already. Okay, so now we'll move over to our upper chest area. To do this, I'll be working with my shoulder measurement. The shoulder I'm working with for this tutorial is 14 inches. 14 inches divided by 2 is going to give me 7 inches. But this is going to be like a sleeveless blouse, so I'll remove ½ inch from the 7 inches, and it's going to give me 6.5 inches. Okay, so the 6.5 inches, I'm going to measure it. I have 4 inches here, then I'm shift my tape rule and then measure the 6.5 inches. Okay, so after having my 6.5 inches, I'm just going to add like ½ inch for joining them together, for joining my princess seam together when I cut it. And then I'm going to connect it using a curved ruler to have a curve for my armhole. So once I have this now, my pattern is ready, and then I'm ready to cut it out. So by the time I sew it here now, my armhole will be okay. And if you are not okay with your armhole by the time you are done, you can actually reshape it. So now I'm going to cut this out now, and then we can cut the yoke of our keyhole blouse. So after cutting it, this is what we'll have. I'm going to set this aside now and then work on my yoke. So for my yoke, remember I said the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 14 inches. Divided by 2 gave me 7 inches, and then I removed ½ inch from the 7 inches because it's a sleeveless. So I'll have 6.5, and I'll repeat the 6.5. So now I'll measure my armhole measurement. The armhole measurement I used is 9 inches, which is what I have here. And then remember I said there's going to be an overlap blouse. The yoke is going to overlap on the main bustier. That is why I'm leaving the measurement at 10.5 inches. Okay, so the measurement for my yoke is going to be 10.5 inches, which I've already marked, and I'm going to cut this out now so that it won't be confusing. So now to mark my armhole, I put the 6.5 that I already have here, and then make it into a straight line, and then I'll measure my 9 inches for my bust measurement. Here on the shoulder, I'm going to go down by ½ inch for my shoulder slope, and then I'll take the midpoint of this, which is 4 inches, and then here I'll go in by ½ inch. Then I'll connect to get my armhole curve. I'm sure by now we understand all this from just measuring our basic bodies. Okay, so once we have this, our armhole is ready. I'll add my seam allowance to it. I'm adding just 1 inch seam allowance here because remember, unlike the bustier here, I'll not be joining anything together because it's not going to be having any center seam. That's why I'm adding just 1 inch seam allowance to it, and then I'll just connect it down like that. Okay, so now remember when I was taking my off shoulder, I went off by 6 inches. So the 6 inches, I'm going to mark it here, and then I'm going to note it by just reading a line here. Then I'll measure my neckline. The neckline I'm working with here is depending on whatever it is that you want. Okay, I can do like 4 inches by 3 inches for my neckline, or 3 inches by 3 inches, depending on what. Let me just do the standard 3 inches by 3 inches. And then here I'm going to connect my shoulder slope, and then using my curve ruler I'll connect my neckline. Okay, so the next thing for me now is to connect from my 6 inches that I went down by. Then I'll connect it to the hemline of this basic body so that I can form my keyhole. So using my free hand, I'm just going to connect a curve like this. Okay, and then I'm through. So now I can also cut this out. Okay, so now I've cut this now, and then I remove it, and this is going to be my yoke, and these are going to be my bustier. So now I'll take this now and cut it on my fabric, then bring it back to continue. Okay, so now I'm gonna to cut it on my fabric. This is the bustier part, and this is the lining I'm working with. I don't have a matching lining, so I'm using this because this is just a tutorial, and this is the main Ankara fabric This is the side front and this is the center front. Remember that the center front part on this side, it has to be on fold. You have to put your fabric on fold before you can cut it, like I did here. Okay, so this is for the bustier and this is for the yoke. Likewise for the yoke, remember this is the center front. This center front part has to be on fold, and I'm using this doll face fabric. Okay, so now I've cut two of this, one for main fabric and one for lining. And when I open it up, this is what the yoke is looking like. Okay, remember you can choose whatever measurements for your neckline. It doesn't have to be 3 inches by 3 inches like I'm doing. So now I'll take this to the sewing machine. I'll place this on each other, and then I'm going to sew it on the neckline. I'm going to sew it here on my keyhole area, and then I'm going to sew it on the armhole also, leaving little space for me to turn it out. And then for my bustier, I'm going to join the bustier together. So now if you are doing this for a client, you may want to pad it with maybe wadding or hairstay or whatever it is that you want to pad it with, but because this is just a tutorial, I'll just be sewing it directly. So now I'll do that and bring it back to show us. Okay, so I'm gonna to join them together on my machine. Okay, so now I'm going to shape the neckline, and to do this I'm going to fold the fabric into two. And remember, when you are joining, remember you have to join from bottom to the upper part. Okay, and you can see that it's not rhyme on this side. So if you are not comfortable with the method, this method of, it doesn't work for you, of taking your dart from almost one side, I have several tutorials. You can, like the 2 inches, you can share it between the two sides, or whichever one that works for you is fine. So you may want to check them out to see the one that works for you. So now to shape my neckline, remember I went down by 6 inches. So it depends on how low you want your neckline to be. So for me, I'll be going down by 2 inches again. So plus the 6 inches that I already did, that's going to give me 8 inches, and I have the 8 inches here. So I'm going to shape it to the neckline like this in a U form. So I'll have something like this. So I'll repeat the same thing for my lining also. I already did my lining too. I'll place it on it, and then I'll use them to turn each other. So now I've placed the lining on my main fabric, and I'm going to sew it together on the neckline and also on the armhole. Remember, it's a sleeveless, so that it can be neatly finished. And also on my yoke, I use the contrasting color of thread so that you can see the lines that I sew. Like I said, I sew on my yoke line also, and then on my neckline and my armhole, and I did sew it completely on my armhole so that I'll be able to turn it out. So now I'm going to notch it around and then turn it out so that we'll see what we have. Okay, so now I've turned it out. You can see it is still folded, so you can take it to the ironing table now to press it open, and then on this space that I left, I'll fold it into the seam allowance, and then I'm going to top stitch on it. So I'll go do that now, and then I'll show it. Okay, so I've sewn my lining now on the neckline and the armhole. So I'm going to notch it and then use them to turn each other. Likewise for my yoke, I've also top stitched on it, and you can see that it's relaxing better now. Okay, so after turning your neckline and your armhole, you need to measure your armhole to see that if it's correct. If it's not correct, you can reshape it like I said. But please, you need to be ironing this. Remember, this is just a tutorial and it was requested by a subscriber, so I'm doing this at home and I'm working with just what I have. So now the yoke that you made, you just need to place it on your armhole following your armhole measurement. Once you use the same armhole measurement, it's going to work. So you just need to place it on it like this and then top stitch on it here and here to hold it together. And you do the same thing on the other side also. You place it on it and then top stitch it, and then we'll take it to the mannequin to see what we have. Okay, so I've sewn them together now. You can see. Now I'm going to take it to the mannequin so that we will see what it looks like on the mannequin. Okay, so this is what our overlap keyhole bustier is looking like. It's overlapped because the yoke is lapping on the bustier. And if you want to place the yoke on the bustier, so if you have like a dress form, you can pin it to it just to get the accurate place to place your yoke. But if you followed your measurements correctly, if you use the same measurements for the yoke and the bustier, it should be easy for you. So you can see how simple and lovely it is to make this. So you just need to create your back bodies and then join them together. But I just did the front. This is just for the purpose of this tutorial. Kindly like and subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed this tutorial, and let us know if this has been helpful to you. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.